This is a call for vengeance. Welcome to today's show. This is an important story to cover, not because what they're telling us in the mainstream media on the mainstream news is real, but because they're telling you this because they want you to believe in the narrative that they're giving you. Now, I've been talking about a grid shutdown. I've been talking about EMPs. I've been talking about direct energy weapons. These are all things that the government has the capability to use. And the reason that they have the capability to do these things is because we've allowed them to. Obviously, under the false impression that our government would use these weapons to protect civilians in the United States of America. But somewhere along the way, wink, wink, obviously all the way along the way, our government has been infiltrated. Our government has gone rogue. And they plan on using these weapons that they've used all of our tax money to build on us. And they need to create a boogeyman to blame. And this is what they're doing in the mainstream media. If you haven't heard, listen to this hilarious narrative about Russia's national security threat to the United States of America and the potential for what they're calling a Russian space nuke. That's right, a Russian space nuke. But I'll show you and tell you what it really is and how they're using the satellites that are hanging up on balloons over our heads to do these things to us. But listen to the boogeyman narrative and watch how they try to even play this off to tell you that it's coming by showing you how our government is dismissing it, how they're paying attention to Ukraine, how it's confidential. Well, if it's so confidential, it wouldn't make it on Good Morning America. It wouldn't make it on Fox News if they weren't gaslighting you into thinking and wanting you to believe that your government is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is true. But what they don't tell you on Fox and they don't tell you on NBC is that the Republicans and the Democrats are working together to do this to you. They want you to think that one side is incompetent and the other side is incompetent, and thus our country has just gotten so distracted and so crazy that other outside forces were able to come in and attack us, when in reality, it's our own government. It's been our own government all along, and it will be our own government who attacks us from within.
An unconventional warning on Capitol Hill. Chairman Mike Turner of the House Intelligence Committee summoning his fellow members of Congress to a secure room at the Capitol to review what he called a, quote, serious national security threat. Turner wants the White House to declassify the material so it can be shared with American allies. While members of Congress refuse to share what they learned, three sources familiar with the matter tell NBC News Russia is developing a space-based nuclear weapon designed to target U.S. satellites. Satellites serve as a crucial backbone for U.S. civilian communications, navigation, military operations, and intelligence gathering. The sources adding the weapon is not yet operational. The White House is reviewing its options.
We believe that we can and will and are protecting the national security of the United States.
On Capitol Hill, members entered the secure space, but couldn't say much when they left.
I think I'll allow, the president and the executive branch to opine about what this means.
And while everyone agreed the threat is serious, they told the public they did not need to worry.
I want to assure the American people there is no need for public alarm. We are going to work together to address this matter.
This warning comes as a $95 billion national security supplemental package, which includes funding for Ukraine, passed the Senate, but is now stalled in the House. Republicans insistent they won't move funding overseas until the situation at the southern border is under control. But that's not all. The House is yet to approve the reauthorization of a federal surveillance program that intel leaders believe is essential to fighting terrorism and helping support the U.S. military. Some members of the GOP believe the program encroaches too much on the average American's privacy. A planned vote for this week was postponed.
Fox News alert: America is apparently facing a national security threat from Russia that's so terrifying that our own government said they couldn't tell us what it is. This vague threat started this morning. Primetime producers were getting alerts on their phones, each alert more ominous, but just as vague. Congress said there was a threat, but we couldn't tell how serious it was, and neither could anyone else.
There's really no cause for panic or alarm around this particular piece of intelligence.
Should be concerned. It's serious. That's all I can say right now.
This is a serious issue. There are many serious issues that we undertake all the time. but there's no need to panic. This is not an immediate crisis.
This is one more thing to worry about in terms of Vladimir Putin and his attack on democracy and freedom.
Okay, this all started when the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Republican Mike Turner, released a statement saying this, quote, "Today, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence has made available to all members of Congress information concerning a serious national security threat. I am requesting President Biden declassify all information relating to this threat so that Congress can openly discuss the actions necessary to respond to this threat." Primetime doesn't know Mike Turner very well. He's been on our show once, maybe twice. He wants to protect the country. We believe he's a patriot, but I've been in this business for 20 years and something seemed off. Doesn't the Gang of Eight usually handle big intel announcements? And where's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who still hasn't ever done our show for some reason? Well, he runs to the microphone and tells Americans not to panic.
I want to assure the American people there is no need for public alarm. We are going to work together to address this matter, as we do all sensitive matters that are classified.
So one Mike says very serious national security threat that Biden has to declassify. And then a more powerful Mike says nothing to be alarmed about. We'll handle it in private. Democrats are saying it's serious, but it's no need to panic. Other Democrats saying Putin's attacking our democracy. What's going on here? And then we get the drip, 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 little morsels of info all afternoon. It's something we've known about for a long time. Then it's something we just found out about. Politico reported the intelligence was related to Russia's hypersonic cruise missile that can fly at speeds between Mach 6 and Mach 8. They also speculated that the Russians and North Koreans were joining forces to attack our space capabilities. The media was going crazy.
We have new reporting on a cryptic message that the House Intelligence Committee released on social media about a, quote, serious national security threat. What do we know about this?
Cryptic is the right word. We still have more questions than answers at this point.
This must be a grave situation for the chair of the Intelligence Committee to make such a bold statement.
The threat is related to Russia.
It's not that Martians are going to land right now in the U.S., but it is something of concern.
All right. Once the media was throttled into an orgy of speculation, the intelligence community leaked to their favorite New York Times reporters, Eric Schmidt and David Sanger, that the intelligence was about Russian nukes. You ready? The new intelligence was serious, said the New York Times. But these Russian nuclear capabilities didn't exist, and they were still under development, and they hadn't been deployed. This information was classified and could not be declassified, even though Russia can read the New York Times. But it gets juicier. Leaks to the Times also reveal that Russia is developing space-based nukes that could blow up our satellites. But again, Russian space nukes haven't been developed and aren't even in orbit. First, they told us Russians were using World War II-era tanks in Ukraine, and now they've built the Death Star, and we're all going to die.
So the narrative there is pretty hilarious, right? A space nuke. Now, there's no such thing as a space nuke, but what there is such a thing as are satellites flying above us that they can use with electromagnetic pulses. There's also those frequency towers in our towns that they could send radiation and all types of pulse frequencies out of. So they've been preparing us for a massive grid shutdown. And a lot of people out there want to ignore that. And a lot of people out there say there's no way that they will do it, but they will do it. They will do it for a period of time. Now, I'm going to show you the predictive programming before I show you how a direct energy weapon or an EMP can work on our civilians, because direct energy weapons are being used right now to create all these fires that they're creating. They don't want you to think that the capability even exists, let alone do they want you to even know what an electromagnetic pulse is. But they've been programming us with movies. Think about this. Leave the World Behind, conveniently, right? Well, this narrative is out there about a satellite nuke. Well, what were the narratives of Leave the World Behind? How about A Quiet Place? New trailer just released during the Super Bowl. Now, they use outside alien forces, but that's the depiction that they use to show you what is coming, how the world's gone quiet. The world will go quiet when the technology is temporarily shut off. And for anybody out there that thinks it's a conspiracy that they won't do that because too many people will wake up, it will cause a greater mass extinction than any magic potion would possibly cause. People do not have enough food in their homes to survive a week with the grid shut off, let alone a year. And not to mention the fact that they won't have water supply, which will kill them almost instantly. Within days, they'll die of dehydration. They'll die of starvation. And for those who actually do survive for a period of time, they will lose their minds without their technology, like we saw in Leave the World Behind. Here's some of the predictive programming that we've seen with what they're talking about with this Russian nuke. This is what they have prepared for us. And of course, to blame it on a boogeyman that's out of sight, out of mind, out of reach.
I went online this morning and I rented us a beautiful house out by the beach.
Oh, this is nice. This looks so happy.
The Wi-Fi isn't working.
I'm so sorry to bother you, that this is our house.
This is your house?
We were driving back to the city, then something happened. I need to think everything's gonna be okay.
We are seeing ongoing cyber attacks across the country.
Something is happening, and I don't trust them.
I would do anything to protect my family. What you do is your business.
Get in the car right now!
Haven't you been picking up on what's going on out there?
Whatever it is, it's happening to all of us.
What is the truth?
To be very, very carefully.
Look at that.
It's all going to turn off.
What?
It's going to turn off, and it will never, ever turn back on. Everything is going to turn off.
Ben, did I lose you? No.
So when you see all that stuff, people go, well, I don't understand. Why would they do that? Well, let's all understand this. We know that they want to do a great reset, right? We all know that in order to have equity and everyone to be inclusive and everyone have the same amount of money and have a digital currency and everything has to be destroyed and broken down. And a grid shut down for a long period of time. When they turn the grid back on, nobody's going to care about how much money they once had in their bank account because it's all going to be wiped out. And whatever the government tells them, they're going to believe and go along with. So if a year goes by and you somehow survive, do you think the first thing on your mind is going to be that you had $100,000 saved up in the bank or $50,000? It might be, but the government's going to go, we can't do anything about it. It's all gone. Everything's gone. We have to start fresh, start from zero. Thus, a reset. And that's how you start a reset. You don't start one just with potioning people. This will cause the greatest mass extinction that they've ever created by shutting off the grid. Now, the story that you heard is to blame boogeymen. The boogeymen will be Russia, they will be Korea, they will be China. I call them built-in boogeymen. Because when this goes down, you'll be doing your own thing in your own life. You probably won't even be thinking about me. Maybe I'll pop up in your mind. But you're going to hear all the noise around you, and everyone you hear is going to go, okay, what's going on here? And then there's going to be leaks of information somehow from local townships or radio, something. And they'll all be talking about how Russia's attacked or Korea's attacked or China's attacked, and everybody will believe the narrative. Everybody will go along with it. And you might, because you've listened to this channel, you're a like-minded thinker, will say, no, that's not what's happening. It's our own government. And no one will believe you. And you know why they won't believe you? Because of built-in narratives like I played for you in the beginning. That's the whole point of the news, is they build the narrative into your subconscious mind. So when these events occur, they want you to blame the boogeyman. And when they tell you it's the boogeyman, then you go, oh, it is Russia. They finally did attack. But if something just happened overnight without any warning of it, the civilians would get very suspicious of their own government, wouldn't they? So they're telling you ahead of time, the left, the right, Fox and NBC, playing this role as if, oh, well, they're not doing enough for us. They're not doing enough. And then they get away with it, right? The government that doesn't follow their own laws, right? Rules for thee, not for me. We've seen all the narratives they've played out. And that's to set you up for a collapse. That's what they're doing. Now, for those of you that don't know how an electromagnetic pulse works, what they could do is send these pulses from lots of different weapons that they have. And what these pulses will do, it'll wipe out everything you own. All of your electronics, I should say. Potentially your car, right? Like, and leave the world behind. We see the car shut off. Airplanes, anything run, with a computer, with technology, right? There's a lot of people that have EMP shields and protectors to prevent it, but they could hit you with a frequency that you cannot even protect yourself from if you tried. And if you do somehow have things that survive an electromagnetic pulse, well, people are going to come and try to steal it. I mean, you're going to, and they know that, and it's going to turn into even more chaos. So if you haven't seen some of these clips, they've talked about electromagnetic pulses, how our military has it, how they could wipe out 90% of this country's, power grid. They're going to blame all of these boogeymen. But again, remember, it's our own government when you see these news clips who would be doing this to us.
We hit every target we wanted to. We prosecuted everyone. We made science fiction science fact.
We're not quite up to the place where the Star Trek and Star Wars movies are, but this is definitely an advancement in technology to be able to give us an opportunity to do things that we couldn't do before.
When that computer went out, when we fired, it actually took out the cameras as well. We took out everything on that. It was fantastic.
A panel of experts at the Universal Peace Federation has now issued a warning on the growing threat of EMP or electromagnetic pulse weapons. Such an attack can knock out virtually all communications and other critical services of countries in a matter of minutes. For long, experts have warned that key electrical infrastructure in the United States remains particularly vulnerable to an electromagnetic pulse attack or EMP, likely to be orchestrated by China, North Korea, or even Russia. The Universal Peace Federation specialists have now said that the US is at a pivotal moment if it wants to avoid a potential doomsday scenario. But to analyze the risk, we must first understand what an EMP is and how it can be weaponized. An EMP weapon is one that directs a massive explosion of energy over an intended target, much like lightning. But in contrast to other conventional weapons, an EMP explosion does not physically harm humans. What it does, though, is cripple all electronic devices and infrastructure within its radius. The weapon at first is glided directly above an intended target. These weapons, according to the US nomenclature, are classified as high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, or HEMP. A HEMP attack can interfere with radio frequency and instantly produce damaging voltage in electronic devices across thousands of miles. It can hinder fuel distribution, transport, food and water supply, and most importantly, communications, especially military communications. Such attacks can permanently immobilize vehicles with modern electronic ignition and control systems. Several congressional hearings and commissions in the US have flagged the vulnerabilities of the American power grid. In 2015, a congressional committee testified in a joint hearing to discuss EMP weapons and preparedness. It asserted that a nationwide grid collapse, either via HEMP attacks or other conventional methods, had the potential to wipe out up to 90% of the American population. According to an analysis by the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, China already possesses so-called super EMPs. Analysts now fear that China's recent test of a new hypersonic glide vehicle last summer could give it impetus to deploy a high-altitude EMP against the United States. Though the US keeps much of its EMP weapons capability classified, it is known that the US Air Force High-Powered Microwave Advanced Missile Project, or CHAMP, is now being expanded. In October last year, a massive power outage in Mumbai in India brought India's financial capital to a grinding halt. In the wake of the disruption, Chinese hackers were blamed for launching a cyber attack. But it did offer just a sliver of the kind of destruction that a similar attack, in this case through an EMP, could actually achieve. Of late, governments worldwide have expanded mitigation measures against other forms of advanced warfare, including cyber attacks. As for nuclear weapons, all major world powers have them and conform to the mutually assured destruction doctrine for deterrence. But based on the US's own assessment and preparedness against EMPs, there is still much more to be done.
So they want you to believe that any type of an attack that comes to us would be from Russia. They're building supposed nukes, even though the majority of us don't even believe that nukes exist. The propaganda of the nukes from back in the day with the technology that they had. They conveniently rolled out Oppenheimer. I'll do a separate video on that. But, they conveniently rolled that movie out now. Why do you think they rolled the movie out now? Because they know it's a way to program you. Oh, it's a nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb programming has been in place since, the 40s and 50s, where they've been warning about nukes, telling you to stop, drop, get under your desk, showing you all this stuff. This is to keep you in control. It's fear to keep you in control. Now, they might have the capability to create a nuke, but with the satellites that they have flying overhead, not in space, with these planes that they use every day to chemtrail us, they could hit us with all sorts of direct energy weapons. They could hit us with all sorts of electromagnetic pulses, and they could wipe out the entire grid when they want to, and they will do it. But they want these built-in boogeymen. That's why they keep showing you this stuff, okay? This isn't leaking news. How would it get out, first of all? How in the White House does a story like this get out, right? And you may have noticed in that clip as well earlier in the video where they were talking about the federal surveillance program, right? That's pretty funny, too. It's another thing I got to do a deep dive on for everybody out there who's still listening to the channel. But why would this get out, right? All these guys come out and they're like, we can't talk about it. Oh, I can't talk about it. Well, if you can't talk about it, then who leaked it to the news? Oh, and then the news suddenly all the people on Fox who say the news is fake are like, oh, look, this story is real that, CNN is reporting on. And they go back and forth. And then the Democrats are like, well, we got to take care of Ukraine first. And then the conservatives are like, why are you not talking about this more? Why are you, creating other things so we don't pay attention to this? And everyone just points a finger at each other while government wipes out the power grid, resets everything like they've wanted to do from the get-go, and then all these other things are planted into your mind, which you've been prepared for. The equity, the allowance that they're going to go out, the central bank digital currency, new currency, all of this stuff comes when the grid comes back on, but it has to go off first. And that's why I emphasize to people to be prepared for that, not just with food and water, and to spend any extra money you have. I don't tell you that, I'm not giving you products to buy and giving you a code so I can make money. I don't do that. But I'm telling you, if you have extra money, you should be putting it into food and water. Putting it in, and the hardest part for a lot of people is where do you store this stuff? I get it. And another hard part is who do you tell about? So these will be things I talk about separately over on my podcast. I'll do a long, deep, 45-minute to an hour talk, but all things you should have, need to have. And then mentally, how you prepare for this. Because that's the biggest hurdle to get over. We all like to sit here and act like we don't depend on technology, but you do flush a toilet, right? You need electronics for that, electricity for that. Okay, so it's not just about, oh, well, the world would be great without our phones. The world would be great without the TV. Well, yeah, it would be. But guess what? You're not going to even have, do you have lamps in your home? Are you ready to, to go back to Little House on the Prairie? Do you have an outhouse prepared? What are you going to do? Take a dump at the toilet and then not be able to flush it and let it pile up? Right? I'm going to have mosquitoes flying around your bathroom. How are you going to get it out? Are you going to shovel afterward? I mean, these are things no one thinks about, but they go, I don't care. Nothing will happen. The world will fall apart. And the place they want to fall apart is the United States of America. That's why this is planned for America. This is how you bring America to its knees. And it will not be a Russian space nuke. It'll be the United States military using some type of electromagnetic pulse on the civilians. Even wouldn't be surprised if they mix in direct energy weapons with it in certain locations to make it look more like a nuke, like a city specifically, to light it up. And with the grid off, with everything off and technology off, nobody will be able to say, hey, look, it's a DW. Look, we saw the video clips like we see with all these other ones where it's very obvious it's a direct energy weapon. They could fry an entire city with the grid down and then, using the satellites above or using it from the shores on the military ships, etc. And then they'll just tell you that, oh, it was a nuke, and everyone will just believe it because there won't even be video proof to prove otherwise, okay? This is what's coming. Be prepared and understand why they tell you it's coming is so the built-in boogeyman can be in place so that when it goes down, the civilians don't realize what's really happening and rise up against this government gone rogue. They want that certainly in place so that when it happens, you tell your neighbor that the government's done this and you've been listening to conspiracy. And, if they weren't programming people to be prepared for it, they would go, really? Okay, well, what can we do? But they're pre-programmed. So they're going to think you're a crazy nut because they've already programmed everybody to think that. And while you tell them this, they're going to say, no, it's not, it's Russia. No, it's not, it's China. And they will believe whatever they're fed. And then when the grid cam comes back on, they will do whatever they're told. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.